Welcome guys to another Filmmaking Times Live. I'm your host, Tom Antos, and as always, we got Lucas here.
Hi everyone.
So Lucas, maybe you want to introduce the show today?
Okay, right, so just recently, as many of you might know, we spent about a month in Ecuador, and there we shot two different types of projects. It was with the same crew actually, almost the same crew, but one was a short film that we were producing or co-producing, and the other one was a music video produced by a local company. And just like it was because we did the project one after the other, close to each other. It was good. It was like kind of pointed or highlighted for me some differences in terms of the workflow, how you need to approach these projects, and also specifically just watching my Tom. Kind of could see that how you work as a director and then how you and then how you work as a director on a short film, and how you do it on a music video, and the same thing as a DP.
So what were maybe you can say quickly, like because before I get into it and start kind of telling people what, from my point of view as a director, how it is, and then you also as a cinematographer, like the big differences. What would you say? Like you're more on the producing side, so what would you say? Like as you noticed the differences. And by the way, for those of you that don't know, those two projects that we shot in Ecuador were actually they were shot with the same crew pretty much. So the arrangement was different, but we shot a music video and a film, and the crew was pretty much the same, right, Lucas?
Yeah, almost the same.
Yeah.
I mean, just like on the general level, before getting into the DP and director roles, I would say that I enjoyed both projects. There's really, I think both projects the final result will be impressive. I'm really happy with the stuff, with the shots we got. And but I think it was a bit more fun. It was on the short film. I mean, it was more difficult. It was more with less time, more pressure, more adversity. But what I did, as a producer, and just I wore many hats on that project, including a sound guy. What I really enjoyed just working with the actors. We had a really good cast, talented people, and also they were just on a personal level. They were really good. And so yeah, we just enjoyed that process of working, with the actors, like getting the scenes right, getting the scene, right, getting the characters right. And whereas with music videos, it's easier in the sense that you're more focused on just getting this. You don't have to worry about the audio. Performances are much easier to get, and you can just you're just focusing in on getting these, the cinematography, and just nailing the single expression. You're just really, those are sometimes you just use very quick shots. Usually, most of the time on music videos, you can you really zero in, right? But with films, it's not so much. There's so many with films, it's so many things you have to worry about. Makes it more difficult. At the same time, I think it makes it more interesting, more challenging, and more interesting.
So would you say then that from you as a producer, and just kind of when you're on the sidelines watching, you'd say then that making films is harder than the music videos?
I think so. I mean, I'm sure you can come up with scenarios where producing that music video will be way more difficult than producing that short film. But all things being equal, I do think it's more difficult, to make a short film. The sound is a big thing, right? You have to worry about the sound, but also performance is if so many things have to go right for you to say, okay, yeah, we've got it. We can move on to the next shot, next scene. Because you have to get on the technical side, sometimes you don't get something right?
Yeah. And for example, here when we're filming in Ecuador, this music video, and those damn chickens were not cooperating. Showing some behind the scenes. This is actually from that music video that we shot. This is one of really cool locations. Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of jump in a little bit right now and kind of guys tell you maybe my big thing first as a director, but I'll kind of go a little bit of tangent here and there. Talking about different aspects of, I guess, the differences. Biggest one, obviously, is the sound, right? So that, music video, not always the case, but for the most part, you're now worrying about sound. And that's why also, like, when it was a few years ago when I was doing a video kind of to people who are starting out, giving them advice, saying that I think music videos are a great way to learn filmmaking. Doesn't mean you're going to learn everything on it, but it's the reason why is because, kind of like Lucas already mentioned, there's a lot less things to worry about, basically, because you're on a music video. You kind of, at the end of the day, you're worrying about making sure you're getting pretty images in your camera. And then also, making sure that with those images, once you put it all together, you can tell a story visually. But then that means that things like sound capturing, like the production sound, also the, what do you call it, sound design, music, like all those things, you don't have to worry as much about it because precisely because of the fact is that, like I said, most of the time you're not recording sound. Now, there will be sometimes music videos where you're going to get like a little cutaway scene or something, you might do sound. But even in those instances, I'll tell you a lot of times, because those are short little things, a lot of times the sound will be done afterwards, like in post, you can kind of design the sound. And so on a music video, because you're not worrying about sound, that means that when you're actually in the middle of directing, let's say, a shot, or if you're even a DP or something goes wrong, you can still have the actors, let's say the whole scene, happening in front of you, but you can have, let's say, the director, on a megaphone or whatever, just yelling and giving crew straight out to the actors. You can do that, the cinematographer can yell, to his assistant, like many times I've done, and be like, guys, move that, move that light closer. Or, here, for example, in this location where we're filming, we're using a lot of smoke to kind of create these kind of volumetric lighting effects and these rays of light. So in there, a lot of times I will be just, in the middle of a shot, yelling to our assistant, we need more smoke, because it's kind of fading away in the shot and all that stuff. So those are the kind of things that, like I said, that you are allowed to do on a music video. So that, in a way, I would say makes it easier. What makes it harder, I would say, music video versus film is that, again, you can't really rely on sound. So there's a lot of things that in a film where sometimes all you're going to have is just a little, like I said, just a little sound effect in there, or just to create an ambience or feeling of a scene, or to create a mood. Like if you want somebody to be scared or happy or whatever, you just play a certain type of song or sounds design or whatever, and that will right away get the audience in there. Whereas a music video, you're kind of relying on telling a story purely visually, and that can be very hard especially when you want to convey like some little piece of information to, so your story in your music video kind of progresses. That's, like I said, that can be actually a pretty damn hard thing. And also because you're kind of stuck to that song, right? You're doing a music video, you're pretty much doing it, you know that your background or your song, is never going to change for the whole story. And I've run into a lot of problems when I was trying to tell a story in a music video where I want to change the mood and all that stuff, but the song is kind of, the same, kind of repeats, chorus to chorus. And so because of that, it can be harder. Whereas, like I said, on a film, you kind of don't have those problems. So sound is definitely a thing. It changes the way you work. Like I said, on set, you cannot be loud, when you're on a film thing. And sort of like we already mentioned, on a film, I guess the really hard thing is that you got to make sure that at the end of each take, like on a music video, it's like you cut, and even if a shot is like, for the most part, you're going to ask the DP or the AC is going to confirm shot was in focus, right? Good exposure, all that stuff, and you're good. And you call it a cut and you move to the next shot. Well, when you're working on a music video, you kind of have to make sure that not only is the picture good, but it's also that it was like, let's say if you're doing a very important, like a dialogue scene, that the whole take was in focus. If parts of it were out of focus, you're probably gonna have to redo that whole take, and it might be a 2-minute scene, let's say, or 1 minute, or however long it is. So because of that, you're going to require a lot more time to it. That's one thing I realized, that maybe sometimes people who have a lot of experience shooting music videos but not so much films, they don't realize how much more time you need on a film. Because, like I said, you could have a 2-minute take, everything's great, but let's say, you yell cut, and your camera team gets back to you and tells you, yeah, everything was good, we're just for that one line, we're out of focus. And you're like, oh, crap, okay, that's a very important line. All right, let's redo it. And sometimes you can kind of jump into it and make the actors just redo that one line, but a lot of times it's just to keep the flow better, you're going to just redo the whole take usually. So it takes a lot longer. Also, you know, with many times, like, you know, again, I would yell cut, and then the camera team confirms everything's good, but then the, you know, the sound department says, we got, you know, I don't know, somebody's cell phone going off at so-and-so line. And again, that means that you gotta go and redo pretty much the take, or at least, you know, that part of the scene. So that can be a lot more, you know, yeah, there's just a lot more things to you know, that can get in your way. And also because of that, when you're location scouting for a film, you're gonna be constantly aware of sounds. Like, what are the sounds, and, you know, hopefully you're there. Also, like, I know with the film we shot in Ecuador, it was not shot. Any of it wasn't shot on a sound stage. So everything was real locations, and that was a problem because I remember, like, there was one street that we went to, and when we did the location scout, we were there like later on in the day, and it was fairly quiet. And I was like, okay, this looks good. We, you know, used my sound seeker app to make sure that at the time that we're gonna come in here, the sound will be perfect location, all that stuff. And you know, that my DP confirmed, yeah, this is gonna work. Boom. Then we show up on the actual day of the filming, and turns out what? That the actual location was, and this was really early in the day, by the way, that the actual location early in the day is actually really loud. There was people playing music in like a nearby restaurant. There was a lot more cars going by, things like that. So those are the kind of things that you got to be, you know, aware of. You know, and then that can really slow down your whole production, right, on a film. Lucas, you want to add anything to that?
Sorry, kind of was trying to catch up on the
comments. Actually, yeah, let me know if there's any interesting comments we got.
Couple questions here. Okay, so from Trevor Fenneky, says, across the genres, which group of people is easiest to work with, musicians or actors? What's the easiest way to keep people happy?
I mean, to me, I would say it almost, you know, it depends on it depends on personality for the most part. The one thing is that, we know, when it comes to, well, maybe I should break down, you know, the actors into a few groups. You have the sort of actors that are, you know, maybe starting out in their careers, or, you know, or they have some moderate success, but they're very laid back, very easy to work with. And then you have those actors that you can work with sometimes on, you know, usually on bigger budget projects. There are, you know, shall I say, divas, and not always in a bad sense, but I mean, they've already have really big established careers, and because of that, they're going to be, you know, for the most part, a lot more worried about their image, like how you're going to portray them. And it's, you know, it makes sense. Like, if they already have a big established career, you know, they have a lot on the line, right? They have a lot of, you know, big projects maybe coming up and things like that. And so one wrong move on their part, or bad project, or just the way that they're portrayed, it can really change, you know, or sometimes ruin their careers. So they're going to be a lot more demanding, right? Whereas with musicians, I would say in music videos, for the most part, you know, again, it will come down to personalities, but for the most part, musicians, you know, again, they're going to be kind of more like those divas. They're going to be, you know, those diva actors, more established actors. They want to also, you're doing a music video, which at the end of the day, the job of the music video is to portray them in a certain way, usually in a good light. So you want to make sure that they look good on camera, you know, that their music also is you know, portrayed properly, like all of that stuff. So they're going to be very kind of in your face, and also they're usually your client, right? You're doing a music video for them. So because of that, you're going to have the musicians a lot of times, you know, kind of over your shoulder looking at your shot, and that can be a little annoying. Doesn't mean that it's hard to work with. I mean, I've worked with some musicians that were very laid back, but they still did that. I mean, they were still, oh, can I check the shot? Can I look at it? And then they would just kind of keep to themselves, sometimes make a little suggestion. And then at the same time, I had artists who were just a pain in the ass, pretty much like directing over my shoulder. So that's not fun. With actors, I find, like I said, most actors, you're hiring them. So pretty much you tell them, okay, I want you to do this or do that, and they'll be totally cool with it. You know, I've had some cases, like I said, when we're talking about those indie projects where you're working with kind of not established actors, where, yeah, sometimes you have an actor who, in one case I remember I had an actor who was, I guess, questioning my techniques, and I was not getting the shots that I wanted, and the performances, and we're getting late. So, you know, I started kind of getting to the point and quickly just telling him, like, you stand here, look there, you know, like, that's all. And he didn't appreciate it, and I can understand why. I mean, he wanted to have more creative input, but we literally had no time. We had to, like, wrap it up. And I know that by the end of like basically when we're filming, he was just talking back to me straight out, and I just have to keep my cool and not say anything. But well, funny enough, in the end, once the film was done, finished, edited, like months later, and he saw the film, he actually contacted me on his own, and not really to apologize, but kind of just say, well, I wasn't 100% sure what you were going with this film, but I'm really happy I was a part of it. So, really thank you, Tom, for including me on this film. And if you have any projects, keep me in mind. So I was like, oh, it was nice. It was nice to see that he kind of understood in the end that what I was doing once he saw the final film. So you get actors like that. But I mean, for the most part, I haven't had any huge, like, horrible experiences with actors. Musicians, yeah, they're a little bit more demanding because, again, they're your clients. They're paying you to do the music video. So that's the reason why. I would say, okay, let's jump into maybe another point.
Can I add a little bit to it, or?
Yeah, if you want.
I mean, it's like mostly, similar points. I think a lot of it is the experience of the performer, right?
Yeah.
So, first time. So I think I guess musicians, usually for a main acting role, like you get somebody who's inexperienced, so probably better chance that it's going to be easier to work with that person. Whereas you get somebody who's, like a musician, doing their first music, especially indie, you do these. If you do lower budget videos, probably a lot of these people, it's like they don't have that much experience, so it might be a different, like experience, because they don't, for you, because they don't know what to expect, right? And sometimes they maybe focus on things they worry about, how the video is going to look and so on. But I think the main thing is that actually not the performers, but with music videos you get people who are like the managers, or maybe somebody who are people not part of the group but they're on the business side, and they kind of oftentimes they get involved in music videos. I don't think we've ever had it happen on like where it was a negative, but we've heard situations, and I can see where basically you're shooting, and then you get the manager, whoever, they're kind of throwing their 2 cents worth, and sometimes it maybe makes things just more difficult. And whereas I think with films, you're more likely, again, just kind of generalizing, but you're more likely that the whole production will be like collaboration, because the thing is with music videos, it's like you're kind of doing everything to serve the purposes of this one artist, especially if it's not a band, just one person, and it's like everything is being done to make them look good. They already, have a song, and for them, I guess they read the song, so that part is nailed. So now they're like thinking, okay, just let's make sure, I look good, I look cool in this video, and everything like serves them. Whereas
exactly,
film, it's a collaboration, because it's like, even if you have one, unless maybe you have like a castaway and you have like one actor, pretty much, and that's it. But usually it's a way more collaborative, situation. Many people have to do their part for the whole thing to work. And it's not like you're not serving one person, the image, then, of one person. You're serving like the story, right? And so I think that's why it's I think it might be easier to work with actors. I'd say, like, all things considered, but, equal, right? But again, like, I mean, in films, there are so many. Usually, the shoots are longer, they're more challenging. There are more things go wrong.
Well, okay, but you know what I would actually say when it comes to the shoots? You're saying the little thing. Music videos, it's usually shorter, right? I mean, unless you're doing a really short film, you can do one day. But music videos is usually 1-2 days. Sometimes it can take 4 or 5 days. But usually, it's like 1 or 2 days music video shoot. And whereas film, even a short film, a lot of times you're going to aim for like 3 days, 4 days. And if it's a feature film, it could be a month. It can even be longer than a month. So because of that, yes, overall, the length of a feature film shoot is longer. But it is, I would say, it's longer, and so at the end of it, when you're done with the feature film, or a short film, right, you might be a little bit more tired, but at the end of each day, you kind of have a bit more of a breathing room. Whereas music videos, especially the ones that are shot on one day, it's insane. Like 16 hours sometimes you'll be doing it, or by the end people are just like falling asleep, and barely doing their job, which is actually, I personally hate that. I always prefer to just spread it out over more days, because, well, there was one music video I actually had where, because we're shooting so long, and the director and producer were pushing everybody, that people, well, first of all, I, including, you know, half of the crew got food poisoning the next day. So then and I had another job the next day. So that really screwed up my plans. And that was partly because everybody was so tired and all that stuff. And then the food wasn't handled properly. And yeah, a lot of people got sick. Plus, then we found out that one of the crew members on the way back home, he was so exhausted after like 16 whatever hours of shooting. He was driving home and got into an accident. And in the end, you know, it was just the car that was damaged. But yeah, I mean, it's something worse could have happened. So that's the reason why music videos maybe are like short, but it's like intense, like crazy amount of hours packed into it. Films, you kind of usually try to, you know, because you know you're going to have to go a longer distance. So you want to kind of make sure that you have proper time, you know, to get back, you know, take a shower, eat something, you know, get enough hours to sleep so that the next day you can function properly, right? All those things matter.
Right. I mean, that kind of goes to the second part of Trevor's question, which was, what's the easiest way to keep people happy? So, which means, yeah, like feed your cast and crew well, keep the hours reasonable, right?
Yeah.
But overall, you know, it's like how you communicate with people, you know, whether you got good attitude, whether, you know, you let small things or, you know, adversities kind of get into you, and where you get impatient and so on, then that's not a good thing. So if you stay cool and, you know, you set a good example, then it's more likely that the rest of the crew and cast will follow your, you know, act the same way.
You have to set an example, right? But pretty much as a director, like, especially as a director, I would say it's a hard thing on films and music videos. You gotta, you know, it doesn't matter how bad things get, you gotta have a smile on there and be like, no, everything's good, and this and that, because if you're not, and you're the one complaining and this and that, and I'm not feeling good, and oh man, everybody else, it's just like, it's like a virus, it just spreads through the set. So you definitely gotta keep your thing, composure.
Also, maybe another thing I could throw in there that we've seen over and over, especially especially in music videos, where if the client maybe doesn't know you so well, or it's their, for example, the first music video, is to show some footage, in, you know, like early footage, you know, during that they were getting, right? So
to gain their confidence, yeah.
That's
I mean, hopefully they've seen enough of your work when they hire you, so that, you know.
But I think a few times we've had it where it was good to get people, and also like when you're tired, and then, you know, like I've seen, like just watching you, Tom, you know, like we're tired, you know, actors are tired, you know, performers are tired, but then you get a really cool shot and you can see, honestly, like you're just excited, right?
Yeah.
And people get excited too. They want to, and they can see also, you know, just everybody.
But that's what I mean is like as a director, I mean, you have to have that that mindset, and as a leader, you kind of have to be like, you know, like I said, you might be freaking tired, exhausted, all that stuff, but you gotta, you know, be excited. You gotta have that energy, because when you're excited, like sometimes people will look at a shot and be like, oh, okay, especially when you're looking at it like on the back of the camera and it's a small little thing, and people don't get it, like, oh, it's thing. But when you look at it and your actions, like, wow, this is so cool, so epic, like, you know, sometimes maybe even hype it up a little bit. Then you get everybody else going like, wow, okay, we did a good job. Oh my God, this is cool. All right, let's, you know. So you got to do that. Next point I wanted to kind of jump into when doing difference between doing films and music videos is continuity. Continuity is a big thing. When you're doing, you know, basically when you're working on a film, continuity is key. It's very important. So, you know, here you can see, for example, this was shooting a music video, and we had literally sometimes right before we were doing a take, we had our art department kind of, you know, adjusting the set and doing all that stuff. And you can do that in the music video. You can change things up, and even if it kind of looks different from one shot to another, you know, within the same scene, even if the lighting changes, it's not as bad. It's not gonna completely ruin your you know, your whole basically story. But in the film, it is very crucial. And the reason why I say that is because ideally, like let's say if you're doing a really like a big complicated story on a music video, yeah, you also want to have, you know, good continuity. So meaning lighting matches, the set location, you know, all that, the set dressing, the costumes, all of that stuff, the makeup matches, right? But in a music video, even if sometimes things go off wrong, and I mean, I even remember we did one music video once where in one shot, you know, the actor had a different shirt, and then he changed it afterwards because we had a lunch break, and then for the rest of the scene he had a different shirt. And we shot it, and it was just so quick and that stuff, and people didn't realize, you know, that we did that until it was too late. Well, guess what? In a music video, you can fix it, a lot of it in post, as they say, by just editing around it. So we, you know, basically we would cut away to the performance, cut to some other like various shots that you have to kind of filler footage, and then cut back to the scene. And then the scene continues, and the audience by this point kind of forgets, oh, that the shirt is actually slightly different color. So like, you know, those things, you can do that, and you can get away with that in a music video. Whereas in a film, no, because you're in that scene, you're in that one particular scene, and you need to make sure that, you know, when you're cutting, that the whole scene as a whole, when you're cutting back and forth between all the shots, that they all match. So lighting is very key to make sure it matches, and especially when you're shooting outside, it's difficult on a film because you're constantly like looking at the sun and like, oh my God, the sun is moving already here, and it's not gonna match this shot because now the sun is from this angle and all that stuff. Like, you're worrying about those things, especially as a cinematographer. Whereas on again on music video, you're kind of like, yeah, you know, I don't have to worry about it as much. So because you know you can always kind of hide it and, you know, kind of basically, you know, make it look like the continuity is, you know, or it's not so jarring because you can always cut to something different, usually the performance of the artist. So that's the I would say another really big difference between things. Continuity is not as important basically in a music video as it is in a film. Another point I would say is cinematography. So cinematography, what I mean by that is kind of just the style of cinematography is usually going to be quite a bit different, because on a film, cinematography is really important to telling the story. And what I mean by that is not to say that it isn't in a music video, but it's not as much so. Like maybe I can explain it this way: is that on a film, usually like when I'm working as a DP, when I'm working with another director, first I'll ask like, what is this genre? What is the feel of the film that you want to sell to the audience? And let's say if we're going for something very, you know, real, let's say it's like a almost feels like a documentary, like, I know, like a drama or something set in reality, then I know as a DP I cannot overly stylize the film. So that dictates the, you know, not only the set dressing and all that stuff, but also it's going to dictate the lighting, the camera angles. I mean, I cannot really go too crazy with the camera angles, or I cannot with the lighting. You can be very creative on a very kind of realistic or hyper real kind of, you know, film, but you got to make sure that the lights are always justified. So they're always, you know, the audience at least feels like, you know, like let's say I have this light here up here right now lighting me, and I want to make sure that this, you know, feels like I have some kind of a light here, whereas here my key light is, let's say, you know, we make it feel like it's like a window or something, you know, daylight coming through. So those are the things that you got to worry about, and especially then when you're doing reverse angles, that you have then that window or something that the audience in their head goes, okay, that's just looks normal. It just looks like the light from that window happened to hit the actor. Of course, it's never, you know, normal and it's all fake, but you got to make it feel like it just happened to be there. Whereas in a music video or in a film that's very highly stylized, and what I mean by that is most films are going to be kind of more of that real or kind of like semi-hyper kind of reality. But then let's say if you're doing like, you know, I don't know, like Avengers or something really over the top that's clearly the audience knows that this is not reality, well, then you don't have to worry as much with the lighting. You can kind of really go crazy, and you can put lights just because, you know, hey, it looks cool in the shot. You can put add a rim light, you know, on your actor and things like that, just because to make it look more interesting, right? On a music video, though, you're not so worried about what's the genre of the music video. Like, yes, sometimes you're going to be more like, okay, I want the colors to be a bit more muted, or I want them to be more saturated, like things like that. But when it comes to lighting, because, again, the continuity is not there, so you're cutting away usually very fast to different shots, and then you're cutting to the performances and things like that. Because of that, the lighting, you can really have a lot more fun, be a lot more creative. You can just put lights wherever just to make the actor, your subject, your scene look interesting. And you don't have to worry about justifying the lights as much. And that's one of the, you know, again, reasons why I say when you're getting into filmmaking, I think working on music videos is a lot more, you're going to learn a lot faster because you're not worried about the sound and all the continuity, you know, things, but you're just getting stuff done. You're getting shot after shot, and you do have to, though, make sure at the end of the day, though, that the shots look good. So music video, it's kind of like you're usually going to get less shots, but you're going to make sure that every shot looks really good on camera. On a film, not every shot is going to look good. There'll be some shots that maybe, you know, look a little bit, what do you call it, you know, a little bit maybe more boring or a little bit more, you know, just average looking. And then you're going to ever so on have these really epic looking shots. And you can do that because, again, at the end of the day, what you care about is pushing the story forward, right? And making sure the performances are there and things like that. So yeah, so cinematography is quite a bit different, for me, and I know a lot of other DPs when they approach music videos or commercials for that matter too. Commercials are going to be usually very stylized and that kind of thing. So that's another point. I don't know. Is there anything else you want to add to that, Lucas, or like any questions there that we have?
I mean, yeah, just that's why I think it's easier. Music videos are easier to produce because you can, because always something goes wrong and you have to change the plan, and you can quite easily. It's much easier to adapt to in the music video because you can get away with many more things because of the continuity. It's not you can even kind of change the story much easier.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
sometimes you can live with whole shot. Sometimes you can, as long as you have you have to have performance shots, right? But then, if you have a story part in the music video, you have more flexibility. Well, with the story, if you don't get sometimes you just don't get across one point, and it can really confuse your audience. So that's why it's more challenging, I think. Okay, here's a question of local visions. Do you use autofocus on music videos or films, or when the camera is on a gimbal? So that's a good question because I think maybe that's a different. You'll give us a different answer than maybe a year ago.
Yeah, well, so even here, as you guys can see, I'm on a gimbal. And for example, this music video that we shot for Renkai, as the artist there, you can see, a lot of it was shot on a gimbal. It just made sense. So because of that, we used a smaller camera, Sony A6500, and used because it allowed us to basically carry the gimbal longer, right? Because if I had a big camera, and again, the problem is just the weight, and it means that the gimbal and everything is much bigger. But also, if it just means, and then because it's bigger and heavier, it means usually you're not going to be able to run around with it for as long. So you're not going to be able to pretty much shoot a whole day, like on this music video. Sometimes the whole day will be running on a gimbal. So that's an important thing, to be aware of. But also because on this, music video, we were, like I said, shooting so much. We're like on a film, you're going to be putting, for example, like exact location, like markers on the ground where the actors have to hit their marks and all that stuff. On the music video, a lot of it is just, you're kind of just running and gunning a lot of the time. And it's also because, you're working, like in this case, for example, we're working with the musician was the actor. So he's not really an experienced actor, doesn't know how to hit his marks without looking at the ground and things like that. So because of that, you're kind of, and you only have so much time to get these shots. So you kind of have to be a little bit more up and gun, running. And because of that, that meant that if we were shooting with a big camera, that, like a cinema camera, then we would have to have a wireless follow focus system, wireless video system, a follow focus, operator, and that person would be then working on getting all that, all that stuff done. And just so that means the team is bigger, things move slower, all that stuff. Guess what? Now with the technology, and again, this probably wouldn't have happened, or I wouldn't be saying this maybe 2 years ago. But now with like the Sony A6500, which we shot this whole music video, it was great because, because I was basically able to be up on that gimbal and get the shots, again, most of the time on a gimbal, just me operating it. Because I would, for example, set, the face recognition, or like you saw in some of the shots before, I would just use the touch screen. So as I was walking, I would just tap the back LCD on the camera and just tell the camera what I wanted to focus on. And first of all, it worked most of the time. But again, because it's a music video, even those few cases where it didn't work, because let's say the actor, or singer turned around and we couldn't see his face, so then the face recognition didn't work and things like that. In those few cases, it's okay because again, it's a music video. It's like a second or two we have that's not usable. We just cut around it, cut to the performances, and then cut back. So you can do that kind of stuff now because of autofocus. So yeah, very long answer to that question, but I use autofocus now a lot. And even on the film, I'm going to try to show you guys some behind the scenes on the film that we shot there. There was a few shots where I wanted to get the kind of a Steadicam looking shot, right, on the gimbal. And the camera's tracking, but over there, for example, because we're working with specific actors, the actors, you can kind of tell them what distance to keep and that stuff. But also because we're seeing the faces, right? We're capturing the actors talking. I knew right away. All I had to do was set facial recognition. I can register even the faces of the actors, so the camera will prioritize basically which actor to focus on. and that's it. Just hit record, and every take we did, I don't think there was even one take where it was out of focus. It just the whole take, you know, as we were walking, and those were long takes, like a whole. Remember, one scene was the whole scene was recorded on that, which was like almost a minute long, and was perfectly in focus as the camera was tracking with the actor. So autofocus these days is great. Sony A6500, I can honestly say you can rely on that and you can use it on actual professional paid jobs. And another camera that kind of had chance to play around with was the C200 from Canon, and also the autofocus worked on that one, you know, pretty well. Other cameras, I don't know how they are. I know GH5 wasn't all there when I was trying it, but you know, again, it's just kind of, it's gonna also differ depending on the setting do you have and all that stuff. So, what you're showing. So here, let me show you, I guess, some more here behind the scenes, where I kind of talk about the next point, which is acting. So acting on a, you know, on a film or a music video is going to be different because, again, you're not dealing with sound, right? So because on a film you don't have sound, I mean, on a music video you don't have sound, the acting usually is going to be kind of, I always compare it more to what you would kind of see in a theater, because, you know, in a theater, even though you have sound, a lot of times the actors have to project a lot more, and even if somebody doesn't hear in the back or something, just through your body language, you got to carry a lot of that acting. Which on a film, because you can, on a film, sometimes cut in really close and all that stuff, if somebody goes over the top with their body movement and mannerism and all that stuff, it can just look fake, kind of funny almost looking. Whereas on stage or in a music video, it will look good. And also because, like I said, on a music video, a lot of times you're working with people who are non-actors. So the artists, you know, they might have some, you know, be comfortable in front of camera, but a lot of them are not good actors. And also there's no lines to remember because, again, you're usually not working with sound. So you're kind of just, you know, it's all about the little facial expressions and things like that, and make sure that those register clearly on you know, on camera. On a film, a lot of it is like, you know, sometimes you'll have an actor that's completely in pitch black. You just see his outline. And, you know, the actor, if he delivers the line properly and the tone of his voice, it will make a big difference. So acting can be quite a bit different, and I think it's because of that, it's you're gonna have to approach it completely differently. And also, I would say on a music video, you have a lot more forgiveness when it comes to casting, because, you know, whenever I was, you know, responsible for casting as a director on a music video, a lot of times I would even pick actors that weren't maybe so good, didn't have as much experience, or some that had no experience whatsoever, like literally people who were just getting into acting, or people who are not actors. Like I even went, it was a case one time where I used a crew member because he had the right look. And that's kind of what you really care about mostly in a music video. You want the right look, so the way the person, the face, the, you know, the body, the build, you know, the way you dress them, all that stuff is very important. Whereas in a film, yeah, you do want the right look, but you're also, it's like a balance of, like, sometimes you might get an actor that like has a perfect look, but is like not so good, you know, as an actor, doesn't have the experience. And then you have another actor that like is very experienced, but doesn't have the right look. And it's like this balance. Okay, what do I care about more? So those are the kind of things that you're going to be, you know, you're going to be paying attention to. So let's see, what's the next thing here that we have? By the way, Lucas, any more questions or no?
Yeah, there are some of the questions. But,
yeah. So maybe let me jump into my last point here that I have, which is editing. I think editing is, again, very different on a film versus editing on a music video. And the reason is because, again, you can, first of all, you can change the edit a lot. You can experiment a lot with music videos, because you're, you know, at the end of the day, you don't have to have one long continuous scene. You're kind of just, you know, you're looking for something that's basically visual, like this eye candy, right? So you're looking for these shots that you can cut away to and look nice. And if also you have a lot more freedom, because then if, let's say, there are some shots on a music video, like as an editor, if you're working and you see some shots that are like, not so pretty looking, you know, but maybe there's like something that's happening in there that you know, you need to show. Well, you can sometimes show it very quickly, or just not show it at all, and just by showing one shot and then showing, you know, the next shot after that, you can kind of give a sense better of what happened in there. You can kind of let the audience fill in the blanks. Whereas on a film, again, you kind of can't do that unless it's like a montage or something. Usually you have a scene that has beginning, middle, and an end, and that whole scene has to be continually kind of flow nicely from shot to shot. So you're kind of a lot more stuck, A, to the script, in a film. The continuity you got to carry through, all that stuff. Again, a music video, you can change the story drastically, right? You can cut things in, that maybe didn't exist, and by using stock footage and things like that, or cut out, shots that you don't think that are going to make the video look good. Because at the end of the day, I would say in a music video, yeah, the story might be important, all those things, but the most important is you got to make sure that you portray the artist in the light that he wants to be portrayed, right? So, usually they want to look good on camera, then the music video has to look big, expensive, all that stuff. So you're only picking those shots. On a film, sometimes you don't care about that. It's like somebody might look bad in a shot, but that might actually be perfect for the film, right? So those are the kind of things I would say that those are the main points as a director, at least when I'm working, that I always kind of pay attention to. So anyways, let's jump into some questions maybe, Lucas.
Okay, BL Thackeray Music. It says, videos are quick and fun. Feature films are slow and boring to film.
Feature films, yes, but short films. I mean, I'm also talking about short films, right? So,
right. He says, I get more enjoyment working on a music video spending up to 3 years on the feature. Spending up to 3 years on a feature isn't fun at all. And,
yeah, especially when you're a director. Like, people don't realize, but yeah, you're sometimes going to be working long hours as a director. So.
Well, and as a producer, also, it's not that much fun. All the development, well, I mean, it can be fun. There are some parts that are fun, but also the frustrating parts we try to put together, the financing, the cast, all the elements you need. And oftentimes it goes nowhere, or, goes somewhere, and then it comes to a dead end.
Yeah.
So yeah, development is for sure something that's, it's challenging, but at the same time, I mean, when things do work out and you work on something for a few years, then and then the audiences respond, it's a great. The more struggles you go through on the way, if it works out, then it's a beautiful thing, right? But in terms of the whole shoot, the production itself, yeah, there's good, there's nice to be kind of, know that after 2-3 days you'll get the rest, and you can, that's good. But at the same time, like, one cool thing about shooting like doing these long-term projects, like on a feature film, is that the crew cast, they really come together most of the time, or they hate each other.
Well, I usually find, for the most part, I find that you grow closer with people, because yes, if you have some, like 1 or 2 people that are kind of creating problems or thing, then everybody just kind of usually turns away and whatever, just ignore that person, or they just get fired. I mean, I've been on projects where that happened. But usually most people, when you're working on films, they're cool. Like, we're all artists, free thinkers, like kind of, might be a little crazy, but that's kind of what you think. So because you're working with that crew, you kind of, like you said, you kind of become friends. I mean, there's been some film projects that I've shot where, I haven't seen the crew, or the cast for, years, but we still keep in touch on Facebook and stuff like that, because it's just, when you spend, especially for, on a feature film, like a month or 2 so close together every day, for so many hours, you really, you grow close. You make good friends and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Okay, from Jose Perez, what music genre is the hardest to work with?
Music genre. Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on I would say depends on the personality too, like what it is that kind of you enjoy doing and stuff like that. I know for me, from my experience when I was doing music videos, the hardest was not so much maybe like technically or because I didn't know how to do it, but just, I mean, the hardest because it was hard to make it, make my work interesting basically. And that was doing hip hop music videos. There was a time in Toronto, Canada, where I was kind of got myself almost stuck, you could say, like taking on all these jobs, just doing hip hop music videos, because that's where a lot of it was, and that's where there was a lot of money, you could say, I guess, or most money, and because of that, I got pretty tired of doing all that stuff. So it wasn't as fun, not as fun as here, as you can see me. I was actually this was in Ecuador on the film that we shot, and we were shooting this little scene in the pool, and it was actually pretty damn cold. It's the only time I think I was cold in Ecuador on the coast, thing. But anyways, yeah. So music videos, when I was shooting hip hop music videos, it got first of all very boring, very repetitive, and because of that, it just wasn't as fun for me to work on these. So ended up that a lot of times yeah, a lot of times basically it was just like I didn't even want to do the music video because, as an example, I'll tell you, like, you know, a lot of clients would come in and, you know, show me another hip hop music video that they did, and they're like, yeah, so I want my music video to look exactly like this. Or even if they didn't do that, you know, which again, that just makes my work boring. But even if they didn't do that, a lot of those hip hop music videos was like, you know, oh yeah, I want this to be really original, really cool, and I'm like getting all excited as a director. Yeah, we do this, do that, and then they're like, no, I want more, you know, a scene in the club. You know, I'm gonna pull up an expensive car, and then we're gonna have lots of, you know, I'm gonna use the words that they use, but lots of ladies, half naked, and it's gonna be a party. And I was like, oh, okay, another one of those. And I remember, like, I did a few of these music videos in a row, and after a while, I pretty much just said no more, not doing these music videos. I had to start doing, you know, those jobs because it wasn't fun for me. It felt repetitive, yeah, it just whatever. I just didn't enjoy it after a while. So, but again, some people will enjoy that. So if you enjoy that kind of doing those kind of music videos, then I think that's why I would say that to answer, yeah, it depends on what it is that you like.
Okay, so you kind of answered the next question, which was from Copper City Flakes. Do you have to like the music to shoot a music video?
I would say, yeah. I mean, not just music, but films. I mean, anything that you're working on, as a director, especially, you really want to be. I guess I would say you really want to make sure that you're passionate about what you're doing, because if you're just doing it because, like I said, it's like, oh, it's a job, I'm gonna get paid, whatever. Trust me, your work is it's gonna reflect that. And I learned that the hard way. There was a time where, you know, me and Lucas both, we had a production company and we were relying mostly on music videos. And then I remember a film came along, which, you know, I was like, yeah, I want to make films, I want to feel passionate. But the story and you know, it was basically a film where somebody else came in with the money and said, here, you know, I like your work on that stuff. Could you direct this film for me? And it wasn't. I wasn't that passionate about the story. Like, I understood it, I knew it, but I guess at the end of the day, I would say, you know, and it's not so much that I even didn't care. I mean, I cared. I was like, I want to make a good film, but I wasn't that passionate about telling that particular story, and it showed. The final film just didn't have that passion behind it, and so since that time, I've actually turned down some jobs, like where I had somebody else come in with money, everything ready, and they're like, Tom, we want you to direct. For example, there was a film actually in India that I shot in 2016. That film, the director of that film, actually wanted me. His name is Earl Reinhardt, and he was the writer of the film and the leading actor. And he had no interest really in directing, and he was, you know, convincing me.
He's
like
the producer or the financier, you know. So
yeah. Well, him and a few other people actually, but
yeah.
He was one of them. But anyways, he kept on trying to convince me to direct this film. And at first I was like, oh, maybe I can do it. But I was like, well, okay, so let me read the script. And once I read the script right away, I was like, it did not that I saw anything wrong with the script. I just knew right away that it was not gonna work. Like for me as a director, it was just not a good idea for me to direct it because it had too many things. Like I thought it was a good story, but it just had too many things that I just culturally did not understand. There was some things I understood, but I was like, what really? They like, why would they do this? And then I would talk to him, and he's like, yeah, in India people do so and so, and you know, for as a custom this happens or whatever. And so because of that, again, I was. It became very clear very quickly that I could easily make mistakes and make a film that is shot in India, takes place in India, it's an Indian story, but it's not for an Indian audience. And especially because that film was to be distributed in India and in North America, but mainly for the Indian community. I right away knew that I'm not the person to direct it. So I kind of convinced the director in a way. I mean, the you know, Earl, the writer and the leading actor in that case. I was telling him, you know, Earl, because every time we had a conversations, he had all these ideas and he was passionate about it. And I told him, I think it's a good movie. I think it's a good script. You should do it. But you should direct it. Like, you have all the ingredients. And I know he felt a little bit like, well, I don't know. I've never directed. And I told him, if you want to hire me as a DP, I'll be there. I'll guide you. I'll give you my advice, you know, and to make sure that technically everything's put together. But if you understand the story and you have passion for it, that's really all you need as a director. And yeah, we shot the film. And as far as I know, the film is almost complete. I saw a part of it. The cut looks really cool. I think Earl did a great job. And so, you know, again, I think you have to be passionate about a thing. And to actually, yeah, maybe even add to that answer, there's been directors that I've worked with when that they're not technical at all. They know nothing about cameras, for example, nothing about editing, nothing. But they're so passionate about the stories that they're telling that they're amazing directors, like truly amazing directors. And I've had some of the best experience working with those people versus working with directors who are like, know everything technically, know how to edit all that stuff. But they're just kind of like, I guess they've done it so many times. It's like, oh, it's another film I'm directing, another music video. And they're just, there's no passion there. And it shows in the final work, I think. So you have to be honest about it. And even as a DP, like I'll tell you, I've turned down jobs where maybe, let's say I didn't like the script, clearly, then usually I would turn it down. But even if I liked the script, but I just thought it was, it didn't agree with the topic maybe, or the message they were trying to send, sometimes that happens, then I knew, like, I'm not the person to shoot this, because I'm just, again, in the back of my head, there's something off about it. I'm not gonna be putting my heart and soul into it. So whether it's music videos, films, commercials, I think you have to care. You have to care if you want to do good work. Lucas, any other questions?
Yeah, I've got maybe a few questions that you can. Some of them might be quick, easy to answer, or obvious, so maybe you can fire them off. But here's one from James Cousins. Any way to incorporate slow motion nicely in music videos?
Incorporate nicely in music videos. I don't know. I mean, you just incorporate it.
Well, I would just say, yeah. Like you can see a lot of slow motion, especially in music videos. But more so than
in films. Yeah, I mean, in a film, you really have to have a reason to go slow motion, unless you're doing, Michael Bay films the style, and then I guess you don't care as much. But I would almost say for music videos, a lot of times, unless you clearly know it's like the kind of style that you're going for, that you're never going to use slow motion shots in there. I would say you pretty much always want to shoot slow motion, because in a music video, if you don't want to use the slow motion version of that shot, then you can just play it back at a regular frame rate, and you can usually make it work. So as long as it's divisible by what the final frame rate is going to be. So if you're finishing in 24, then shoot, let's say 48 frames per second, or whatever, 96 or whatever it is. So make sure that it's perfectly divisible by that. But otherwise, this way you have an option that, let's say, I need that shot to be a little bit longer, or I just really like that moment where so and so happens in the shot. Boom, you can just cut to the slow motion version of that shot. So those are
Question from Jose Photo: 24 or 30 frames for music videos?
24 or 30. For me, like the way I like to work, I would say, most of the time it's 24. Pretty much, like I said, with almost anything that I'm doing. So, yeah, 24 for me. But it doesn't mean that that's like a rule or something. I mean, clearly you can, you can shoot in any frame rate. I mean, I've seen more and more stuff now being shot in what's it called, 60 frames per second even. So, and played back in 60 frames. So. But I would say if you want that kind of more classic film look, which is not the smoothest motion, it's a little bit kind of choppy and all that stuff, then you want to do it in what's it called, in 24 frames. Yeah.
All right, here's a question. I'll go the way it was phrased. Travel Mood says how to make a video more attractive in direction. So I guess how does
music video?
Yeah, music videos. How does director really influence, the final look of the video during the shoot, and maybe more so, and also, further in the pre-production, post-production? What's the influence? How of a director in a music video?
The influence can be, again, depends on how hands-on the director is with the camera and all that stuff. Because again, I've worked with some directors that are like very hands-off, and they just kind of trust the DP, and then there's some directors who are the director and the DP too. So it depends on the director, but I would say the biggest thing that you can influence the look as a director, whether you're hands-on or not, is the production design. So you're responsible for picking the right locations, right? You're responsible for at the end of the day for set dressing. I mean, for production design in that sense. So kind of, making sure that you have the right set, and that location is nicely dressed up and all that stuff. Like all those things, are going to make a big difference. So Yeah, I mean, it's you know, and hiring the right team. Like again, if you hire a certain type of cinematographer that has a certain who's known for a certain style, and that's where he really shines, then you know right away that's how your video is gonna look. The same thing for people. Let's say like you know, let's say the you know production design team, you know, and the production designer, you know, and your set dressing team, all that stuff. It's especially on music videos because you're really kind of going, making sure, just caring about what's in that frame. So you got to have a team that's on point, and they'll be constantly checking the monitors and be like, okay, let me maybe change that, you know, take something off in the background that's there that's distracting, or maybe put something in there that will make it more interesting and more the kind of feel that you want as a director. Because I tell you, a lot of times people don't realize that cinematography is a huge part of cinematography is dictated by what's in front of the camera. So what location, what costumes, how the location looks, all those things, it makes a big difference. So if you pick bad locations, you know, or you go there at the wrong time of day, let's say if you're using natural light, or the costumes are not, you know, thing, or the set dressing is not on point, then it doesn't matter how good of a cinematographer you have or you hire, you're not gonna, you know, the shots are gonna only look so good. So production design is key, I would say.
Okay, I just wanted, yeah, the only thing I would add to that is in terms of the director, yeah, on a music video, you don't have as much directing of actors or performers, but I think it's also maybe very important to the communication between the director and the client, the lead, you know, the performer, the singer, because that also like that really, you know, there's a good communication, good chemistry that just makes the shoot way easier.
Yeah, communication is key. That's why I think also like things like, for example, like storyboards, you know, having storyboards or shot lists and all that stuff are very important, because again, that's the best way to communicate with your crew, and even with your cast, because you can, you know, many times I've used, for example, storyboards to actually show people, you know, like the actors, like here you enter, like let's see in this one, you can see I even put arrows for directions for the actors, and I kind of tell them, you enter into the frame here, and this is what you see, this is what happens. And especially when you're shooting like out of order, you kind of can show the actors then, here, we're going to cut to that shot, that's your point of view, so this is what you're reacting to. And, you know, those things are all you know, make a big difference.
Interesting that you should mention the shot list, because that was the next question. It's from Carl Galaxy Studios. He's saying, what are the major differences, if any, of doing a shot list for a music video versus a short film or a feature? Are you like more fluid when working on music videos? Are you improvising more?
It's I would almost say not always the case, but I kind of usually joke around with that a shot list is a lazy man's, you know, storyboard, because in a storyboard, you know, you can do a horrible job too. But if you do a good job, then your storyboards are going to be fairly detailed. So they're going to show you visually how the framing of the shot is, you know, where the camera is moving or the actors, all that stuff. But also, you're gonna have description in there. So you're gonna have, you know, shot numbers. You're gonna have descriptions, and you're gonna write in those descriptions maybe what's the line that the actor says in that particular shot, or, you know, whether it's full coverage of the whole scene or just part of it. Or like those things are going to be, you know, are going to be important. And as shot list, you're kind of just having the description. So you just describe those things, you know, medium, close up, whatever, and it's yeah. So you pretty much have usually the same descriptions that you have in storyboards, but minus the visual aspect. So that's kind of the thing. Well, I guess what's easier about shot lists is it's good to have a shot list, even if you have storyboards, because then when you have, let's say, you know, your continuity person or whoever, then usually I find that you can just kind of, shot list, you can sometimes on one page fit, you know, a lot more shots than you can on storyboards. So it's quicker to check off and see like, okay, we're still missing this shot or that shot, and, you know, stuff like that. So the thing, but I would say again, if you have a good storyboard, you don't really need a shot list. It's an extra. But if you're not going to do storyboards, at least do a shot list. I mean, you need to have something, one or the other.
Okay. Question here from Carl Galaxy Studios again. I guess it pertains to those two shoots we did in Ecuador. Did we have any issues with shooting permits, or was this more of an indie style? So maybe I can answer that. Like, yeah, we did have permits. We did have, and yeah, generally, I would encourage you to get permission, whether it's need from the city or it's a private property. You talk to the owner, because it's not something you want to really. It's something you can, you know, you take care of before they shoot. So you might as well do that, because it can really mess up your schedule when you shoot. You don't, you know, take care of that. So And yeah, in Ecuador, we shot also the music video, for example, we shot for the most part, it was like locations that probably it's not a challenge to get a permit. But for example, we also shot in the city of Guayaquil. It's like some, in the middle of the city.
Oh yeah, like right downtown at the World Trade Center, right? So
right, and also this music hall. That's an outdoor location, but it's they've got major events there. It's a big space, and you cannot just show up there. Other routes they have and so yeah, the producers. I did not produce this one, but the producers of the project, they took care of it all, and so that's like one really cool thing about the shooting there, that it looks like it's easier and cheaper to get these kinds of locations than it would be here in Canada or the US. Yeah, because they were really you were right in the middle, like middle of the city, or you get big music hall, music stadium, and we were able to shoot there. And I don't think I don't think the production spent a lot of money on it. It was just more of the paperwork and everything. So it was that's a nice thing. I guess shooting that city that it's you can get these locations. They're more accessible, I guess, to smaller productions.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much they spent, but
well, I mean, I would just add that in Ecuador in general, or certain places outside of like even within the U.S., if you go to places where there's a lot of production already happening, you're gonna pay a lot of money because like in LA, forget about getting a restaurant, let's say for free or close to free. You're gonna go to any restaurant, they're gonna be like, yeah, sure, you can shoot it here, $2,000 a day, whatever, and they know their worth. They know how much thing because there's so much stuff like that being done, and also they're not wild. Like for them, it's not like, oh wow, they're shooting a film in my place. Like they don't care because there's so much of the stuff happening there. Versus you go to a little small town, in the Midwest in the U.S., or like we're shooting here in Ecuador. A lot of times you can get locations for free even, but yeah, you still want to ask permission. So on the day off, you show up, everything's cool, and you can be clear. You tell them how big of a crew you're gonna have, how many lights, let's say, or any equipment you're gonna be setting up. So you want to have all that stuff. But like I said, it's just you want to take care of it. It's just the big difference is depending on where you are, it might be it might basically cost you a lot, or it might cost you nothing, or close to nothing, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I had a situation here in Hamilton, Ontario. We're shooting this. We just needed a back alley. It was a cool location, but we were going to shoot at night. So be no disruption to the local businesses at all. But the thing is, in that alley there were like 7, 8 properties facing it, and then so I started, so basically, had to talk all these property owners, and then they started to quote me really high rates. So you pay everybody that it's $1,000 to shoot at night there, and then again it's like no disruption to them, right? And it's after after business hours and so on. But the problem was there were TV shows, like it was a popular location, right? And so they were used to getting rates that major productions could pay. Yeah. So that's the thing. Yeah.
And that was for like a web series, I believe you were producing,
right? That was just a web series. We had a very limited budget. At the end, we were able to. We did have to spend some money, nowhere close to the original quotes. I have to kind of explain it's a different league we are at. Yeah, we didn't have the budget to take up thousands of dollars. But yeah, so it's a big thing. Like if you just have to. The only motivator is money. It's a problem. It comes also, I would say, the same thing in terms of getting cast, crew. Like, if you are, almost always you want there to be much more than just the money that's convincing people to work on your project.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I think we can.
I think so. I mean, I hope you guys are looking forward. We're going to be releasing more stuff, as you can see here, our behind the scenes of our shark film. And no, this was not our final shark in the film, but we're just kind of goofing off here. But yeah, I hope you guys, enjoy these little, like these, kind of when we show you a little bit more of the behind the scenes, because we're going to have a lot more stuff, along with some tutorials. I'm going to actually put out some like lighting tutorials from the projects that we shot, or just, like interesting tips and things you can pick up about, like, I know when I was shooting one film with the Ursa and I had a huge problem, I wanted to get a nice tracking shot and couldn't afford the DJI Ronin 2 and all that stuff, so kind of showing you different options of kind of what equipment works best in an actual production environment. So we're going to have a lot of that stuff. But as always, whether it's you or it's maybe your friends or whoever it is wants to follow what we do up here, especially on YouTube but on Facebook too, make sure you guys hit that bell notification because if you just simply are subscribed to our YouTube channel or even on Facebook page, you're following us, you will not be actually notified about every post. So we don't spam, we don't post that often, but when we still have people sometimes that miss, like we have one video at least a week, and I'm surprised how many times people miss that video, and then afterwards I get messages like, Tom, you were promising this video and never uploaded it, and I was like, no, I did. It's 2 months ago. Here it is. And then because the people don't get notified, so make sure you hit that bell notification if you're subscribed and you want to know about every video we do. Anyways, we're gonna be back, I guess, next week, right, Lucas? And and also we're gonna have a video coming out this week too. I'll leave it as a surprise, but with some cool behind the scenes you're gonna see. Anyways, bye guys.
Bye everyone.